Okay, hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Tech and Time Lapse. It's your boy Journey, and well, today we're going to be talking about, let me just put it right out, the Samsung A32 5G. And please don't confuse the A32 5G with the A32, because if you're to put both phones actually together, these phones are almost completely different phones. Like, there's almost nothing that makes these phones identical aside the naming and the build. Once you go into the display, the processor, even the cameras, every single thing about this phone, apart from the chassis, is very different. So if not for the naming, I'll say these are practically two different phones. So this is not a review for the A32. This is a review for the A32 5G. All right, let's get into it. Alright, so primarily the display is probably one of the major things that I don't like about this one. Like Samsung, why would you make a display with a TFT 720p display in 2021? Like, for crying out loud, phones in 2014 already had full HD 1080p display, and in 2021, Samsung being the king, pretty much the company that produces the display for almost every other major phone producers or phone manufacturers out there today, it's a shame and it's sad they actually did that. But they did this primarily in order to drop the cost, because this is the 5G variant, but still it doesn't really make sense to me. But yeah, that's the first thing I don't like about this, and the fact that it's a little bit extremely plasticky, which makes sense for the price range, but it's also unnecessarily bulky. There's a whole bunch of chain around this, which people have actually gotten rid of the chain. But that being said, this is a 6.5-inch display, and the display actually does work. Even though it's 720p, it does work. I just personally don't like it. You've got a bunch of camera bumps just right up here, which instead of having the regular square or rectangular camera bump, this is just straight to the point, small circles, but actually works amazingly in preventing you from wobbling. So like if I put the phone on the table, it actually doesn't wobble, it actually just sits there, which works perfectly for me, which I actually do like that. And the other thing I actually like about this build is it's got the fingerprint sensor on the side. So it comes alongside the power button, which actually does really work for me. I don't mind the capacitive fingerprint sensor at the end of the day, and this does work. I know it's 2021, almost every other major phone out there, even lower models of this by Samsung, have the under display fingerprint sensor, but this works. It's fast, it's responsive, and I don't mind it, to be very candid. Moving on from the display, this phone is powered by the MediaTek MT6853 Dimensity 725G, and frankly, this processor actually holds its ground, while the A32 is being powered by the Helio G80, which is also a very capable processor, especially for the mid-range tier. Okay, so the CPU is enough to actually power you through your basic daily tasks, like you're scrolling the web, browsing, shuffling, whatever you're doing pretty much, playing basic games on like medium level of pretty much graphics configuration. This would actually hold its ground and actually power you through pretty much a whole day, and it does its tasks pretty well. No juddering, no stuttering. Usually it's pretty much fluid and efficient. The only two scenarios that I actually had problems with this CPU generally is one, when you're running a bunch of apps, it drains so much power from the battery that actually stops charging. So even though it's plugged to power, when you have a bunch of like high performance apps actually running, it just stops charging like completely, which kind of like makes sense, but it sucks. The other major challenge that I found with it is Instagram. So when you're scrolling on Instagram, for some awkward, weird reasons, it sometimes just freezes. Other times you're scrolling and the numbers doesn't change. So like when you have like multiple pictures, like you've got like number 1, 2, 3, 4, it just stays stuck on one. Although the pictures are rolling, it doesn't count the numbers. And other times a video is playing, you can actually hear the sound that this video is playing, but just doesn't refresh or play the video. You actually have to go out, come back in, and sometimes you have to do it like 3 or 4 times before it actually plays the video, which really does suck. I'm so sorry to use that word, but yeah, it does suck. Aside that, it's actually performed pretty decently, and I can't complain for the last 1 week that I've actually had the phone. And talking about last 1 week that I had the phone, this is actually my first time of using a mid-tier phone in probably about 8 years. Sure, let me take that back. In probably about 2015 was when I switched to flagship phones. So yeah, about 6 years. This is my first time actually using a mid-tier phone, which is pretty impressive for me. So primarily, I switched my recording camera actually to the phone. So I'm actually recording now from the A32, and I'll record from now to the end of the video on the A32 5G. So you guys can actually see what the recording of the phone literally looks like. That being said, let's talk about charging. So this one can only charge at a maximum of 15 watts, which is the power capacity of the charger that actually comes in the box. Thankfully, yes, a charger and a cable comes in the box. That being said, you only get a maximum of 15 watts charging, which is okay, it's decent, but it's not fast charging, especially in 2021. But it does work, even and it gets you charged in a couple of hours, about 2.5 hours thereabouts is what I timed for full charge. And it does charge the phone, but yes, you do have to wait that long. There's no fast 25 watts, 40 watts, 65 watt charging on this, unfortunately. But thanks to its mid-tier CPU and the fact that it's got a big battery, that's a 5000 milliamp battery, enough to last you on all day on basic use. The cameras. Now, when I actually started testing out these cameras, it was mixed feelings. I don't know if it's primarily because of the display or the cameras themselves. So it was a whole lot of mixed feelings. First, it felt like pictures were extremely undersaturated and it was just lacking this vibrance. It was just too plain and plaid. For lack of a description or expression. But that was the first feeling I got out of this. But the phone is actually being powered by the 48 megapixel primary camera, a 60 megapixel wide angle. It's got a 5 megapixel macro camera and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Now for the regular A32, you've got a 64, 20, 5 on that one. But on the front facing camera for this one, you've got a 30 megapixel, while for the regular A32 4G, you've got a 20 megapixel front facing shooter. Okay, now, so apart from the fact that pictures that I took were extremely plaid, basic, and they lacked emotions or they lacked vibrance or cultural character to them, the videos were also pretty much what I would say meh. There was a lot of places where there was extra judges. It felt like the pictures were just out of place, they were out of sight, and it did do pretty good with night pictures, to be very candid. When you take pictures on a regular smart mode, not using the night mode, but once you switch into the night mode, it just goes contrasty, like a whole lot of crazy, insane, unwanted, unneeded contrast is just added into there, and it adds this whole level of noise and grain into the picture that makes it look like, come on Samsung, what are you doing? Like, come on. But yeah, but basic photos of like outdoors, landscape, I would say I actually really did a decent job. I wouldn't say did a very, very good job. In some places it was underexposed, in some places it was overexposed, in some places lack contrast. But overall, for a camera of this tier, and especially based on the processor that is actually, which is the CPU that's actually processing the graphics, I would say it's okay, or it's acceptable at that level. It's definitely not the best in performance or in accuracy compared to some other phones in that price range. And there's a few others in that price range, very few actually, but overall it actually does a decent job in that angle or in that space. I don't want to go down into selfies. Well, the selfies, I would say I really don't understand what's going on. Most times it's either the edges are blurred off or it's overexposed on one corner, it's underexposed on another corner. It actually struggles to take a very, very decent selfie. But overall, sometimes I do get something decent like this picture right here. Sometimes you do get something pretty workable, but most times it's just like, bro, come on, what you doing? What you doing, bro? But that's kind of like general. I would say it's very, very few phones that I've actually seen have been able to actually handle selfies, especially when you're trying to take selfies against the light. That is, the light source is behind you and you're trying to take a good selfie. It's very difficult for you to get something really accurate. And from these examples, you could actually see that. But it still did an overall acceptable job. And when you're taking pictures on the wide angle, frankly, I don't know why there's wide angle on this one to even start with. It blurs out the edges, like straight up just blurs out the edges. It's not straight, sometimes it's not only blurred, you've got curved lines when there should be straight lines. It's just a whole mess. I would say they should probably just use software to crop it in, or use software like the post-processing of the pictures to try and like automatically straighten out the images or whatnot. But I don't think Samsung really paid so much attention to actually make this really that decent. It's just like, yeah, there's a mid-tier phone, it's got 5G, you're trying to try 5G, you're trying to stay future-proof, and you're not trying to share a lot of money just to grab this phone and use it. And I think that's pretty much where this phone is. And we know Samsung, they pretty much want to throw a phone at you at almost every price range, starting from as low as probably $99 all the way to the top of the line, most expensive phones out there, which is the flip phones. They've literally got phones across the whole board. So I think that's pretty much where this is. 5G, affordable, mid-tier phone. Just let's give you something you can use and say, yes, I've got 5G, I've got a future-proofing, and it works. Yes, this one is a dual SIM phone, although you have to sacrifice the second SIM if you do want a micro SD in there. But otherwise, it works for most applications and in most scenarios. I think this is my review for the phone, and would I actually recommend this phone overall? I would say you guys should probably tell me in the comment section, but for me it's probably like, nah, I'm sticking with my higher ranged phones, unfortunately, just because of what I use my phones for and how much multitasking I do on my phones. But primarily as a backup phone, or if you just need something in that low price range that you want to work, probably say check out other brands like probably the Oppo or the Pocos. Those make actually really decent or much more better equipped phones at that price range. Okay, so I actually didn't need your support, guys. Most of the people who actually watch my videos now subscribe to my channel, and we're trying to flip that around. So please, as you're watching this, just go subscribe to the channel, just click that subscription button and help grow this channel, help support this channel, and let's make this into something good. Because when you guys like these videos, you guys subscribe to this channel, you encourage me to want to do more and cater to you guys out there, and let's build a community, guys. Let's do it. Until next time, it's Johnny, and to that.